How can your glutes help your knees and ankles when it comes to doing your rehab exercises? Whether it's things like squats, whether it's things like lunges or other exercises, how are the glutes there to provide stability to these structures? And equally, how can those structures fail? In this video, we're going to talk about the anatomy of the lower limb, so from the hip down, and why that gives rise to certain issues occurring that can put strain on the knee, strain on the ankle, and unfortunately that can have a knock-on effect higher up in the lower back. We're going to talk about how they fail. They fail in a specific way in most cases, which stresses certain parts of the knees and the ankles. And then we're going to talk about the role of the glutes. And it's going to become very obvious why they work and how they work to oppose this through the action of the glutes. And when we're talking about the glutes in this particular video, we're talking about the wider context of the glutes, not just glute max, the big one that we think about, but some of those deeper muscles in the gluteal region or the hip region as well. So we're talking about the minimus and medius glute muscles. We're talking about some of the lateral hip rotations like piriformis, etc., that play a role in strengthening and stabilizing the lower limb in general. Finally, we're going to tie it all together and give you guys an exercise or a way of doing an exercise at the end with an enhancement to make it more targeted to the glutes, so you can really help build ingrain this process of moving your lower body so that it's much more effective for your knees and ankles. Those are areas that get degeneration, they get strained, they get injured as we get older. And if we've got a sure strategy to be aware of, and we can execute that with specific exercises, we're going to do much, much better for the long term. Even if we have some knee discomfort or some ankle trouble right now, it's really going to help you for the long term. It's not going to give you instant results in day one, but after a couple of weeks, you're going to really start to notice some improvements in the way in which those knees and ankles are functioning. So let's get into, firstly, the anatomy of the lower limb. So the very first thing we want to consider about the hip in general is going to be that the hip, we've got the head of the femur, which is the thigh bone here. But in order to give it its mobility, the way in which it can move through a good range of motion with very stable structure, we have what's called a neck. So on the end of here, we've got like a ball, and we have a neck so that the leg can move in all sorts of different directions. And this gives the hip its greater mobility compared to if it was designed in a slightly different way. So I'm going to draw that out on the board for you guys in a moment and just show you exactly what I'm talking about so you can see it a little bit more effectively. And then we're going to come down all the way to the foot so you can really see and visualize exactly what I'm talking about. So here we have a right leg, so looking straight at you. We have a very, very, very short tibia, but we won't get into that. You get the picture. But the point being here is that because of the hip here, we've got the head of the hip, the leg has, or the leg bone, the thigh bone has to come out a little bit, and then it comes back in and travels towards the middle. So we have some very strong ligaments on the inside of our knee because the weight naturally is going to be driving in this direction. That's the force transference. And when it comes to the structure of the knee, we have a little bit more mobility on this outside, so the outside portion of our knee. And we have much more integrity and force transference going through the inside of the knee, the inside part. And then as we get down to the ankle, we've obviously got the foot here driving straight down through here. And the structure of the foot is so much as if we look at the foot from the side here, we have the heel bone like so. And then we have these little bones in here that then make up the foot in its entirety. And there's a little arch that is formed on the inside of the foot. And that is quite important because we then again have strong ligaments on the inside of the foot down here that support the inside of this system, because as we'll get onto in a moment, everything as it's coming down is driving towards the inside. So we have greater support from the ligaments and we have greater size of the knee on this inside to deal with the natural way in which this works. Now, there are some anatomical differentiations or differences between men and women, typically with women having a slightly wider pelvic girdle for obvious reasons. This angle here, the slope, what's referred to as the Q angle at the level of the knee, is going to be a little bit more severe for some men and for women, because it's a spectrum, if you will. It might be a little bit straighter, which is going to obviously have much better mechanical features or mechanical benefits. If it's going more down like so, it's going to put less of that diagonal force through the inside of the knee, which means that some of the things we're going to get onto in a moment are going to be less pronounced if we have less of an angle coming down in the thigh or the femur. So we've discussed the anatomy first and foremost. Now what is going to happen when the knee actually goes wrong? Well, because we've got this angle coming in like so, and some of you will have this more pronounced than others, that angle coming in means that the knees are going to drive in. It's going to put strain on this ligament that was on the inside here. It's going to put strain on the ankle, trying to maintain that arch rather than rolling in like so. those are the forces that are going in. Now it's important to recognize we've got big, strong glute muscles, we have strong ligaments, we've got strong leg muscles and strong lower leg muscles as well that are designed to maintain this. But through daily life and the way in which we use our bodies on a daily basis, these things naturally become less competent. And that's why we're doing maybe rehab or strengthening work and exercises to build those back up. We have to bear in mind this structure is built like this, and it is remarkably robust, but when it fails, there are things that allow it to fail in particular ways and in a particular direction, which makes things worse just by the design of this structure. So we need to do work, which we'll get onto later on in this video, to strengthen things up. But that is how they fail. As the forces are coming down the limb, it causes the knee to roll in, and you can see as the knee rolls in, you can see very closely my shin, and maybe do this with your own leg right now. As my foot and arch rolls in as well, my leg rotates. So what is happening here? My leg is going in, so it's adduction, that's moving towards the midline. My foot is rotating in as well, so it's going internal rotation. This is very important for when we get on to the next part of the video where we talk about what we do to undo this and how the glutes work. So we're coming in and rotating in as well with internal rotation. Now let's get on to the next part of the video. So what are the glutes doing? Well, the glutes do a few things. We've got the lateral hip rotators. Those open out the leg. They cause the leg to do this movement. They also bring the leg out, some of them, and they also bring the leg back as well. So when we have those movements combined and they're competent, they are going to be there dynamically opposing the forces that we just discussed. So as your weight is going down through your leg and creating stress towards the midline, your hip muscles here are pulling that thigh, that femur, back towards where it should be, its neutral position, like what we drew on the board. And then as the legs rolling in and the arch might be dropping, the glutes are also unwinding. They're providing external rotation to bring that knee back towards the midline and to bring that foot back in line, so we have our weight going through the heel bone, what's called the calcaneus, and splaying out through the toes and the outside part of the foot. That is what the glutes are particularly doing when things are going wrong. They are providing an exact opposition. In all the ways in which the leg goes wrong, those glute complex muscles are there to provide the exact opposing force to prevent that happening, so we can get effective force transference from the torso into the ground. So what are some exercises we're going to do to actually help this? Well, any leg-based exercise is going to be sufficient, but depending on your levels of competence, you want to watch out for these, and you might want to start with something simple like a squat. So just coming down. We always say when you're doing a squat, your knees should go in the same direction as your toes. Why? Because if you're not engaging your glutes properly, then your knees will go in and that rotation starts to occur. But if we engage our glutes properly, then we're going to externally rotate and bring that knee back in line with the toes so everything can work properly. We could start looking at doing individual exercises like so, but the reality is our bodies move in complex ways, and if you're someone starting doing exercises and you're not an advanced bodybuilder trying to target this specific muscle, then you want to do movements that are reminiscent of the way in which we work on a daily basis. When you do a squat, a normal squat, you should be thinking about these things, and your glutes will be doing their work, your core will be doing its work, your back muscles, etc. will all be doing their work to stabilize that movement in the appropriate manner. As we start to push things a little bit and we start to work towards the extremes of our competence, we might find that if we've got a lot of weight, maybe we're doing a weighted squat of some description, as we go down, the knees start to wobble and maybe one goes in a little bit as we push up, and we see things fail. And that's where we need to back off a little bit and work again at a slightly lower intensity and build back up. So naturally, some people do really struggle with this. It's very difficult to have that thought process to keep the knees out all the time, and that's where using things like resistance bands can come in, or glute bands can come in to help you think about this more. So you've got handy training tools like the Glute Band, which you can get off the website, and these simply act to stimulate those glutes. So what you do is you pop them on your leg like so, and as we go in to do a squat, we simply open our legs out, we engage our glutes and hold the band there, and that extra stimulation, that extra feedback from the legs where the band is pressing into the legs just helps us mentally engage those muscles, those correct muscles, as we're going through the squat. Because if we forget to, all that's going to happen is it's going to pull us right in and really exacerbate that. So what we're doing here is we're training a particular part of the movement by working to open those legs back out, hold them where they should be, and then go through the squat. And that's going to just activate your glutes in a bit more of a focused manner when you're doing simple exercises like the squat. And the squat can be used from a beginner all the way up to an advanced person, because it is such an integral movement. It's such an integrated movement that uses not only your legs, your glutes, the whole lower body, but it's also integrating with your core and muscles higher up as well. So just to round things off, the glutes do have an important role in the strength, integrity, and the injuries or lack thereof in the knees and in the ankles. Those injuries occur primarily from driving the knee in towards the midline and creating a rotation through the lower leg, and then causing that ankle to collapse in, those arches to drop. And that, we haven't got into it in this video, but all sorts of issues with the toes as well. By engaging those glutes, we directly oppose those movements. We unwind the lower leg, we bring the knee back into its best and most strong position, and we can effectively weight bear and transfer forces up and down our lower body, which means that our back can be in a better position because it hasn't got to deal with a wobbly interface with the ground. So hopefully you have found this video helpful. If you've got any questions about your knee or about your back or about the glutes in general, then post them in the comments below. If you did find this video helpful, consider giving it a thumbs up. Remember, you can always subscribe to the channel if you've made it this far. We have lots of videos that are geared up towards helping you get your body in shape, your back in shape, or you back in shape for the long term. And we look forward to seeing you in another video.